All right, man, peace. So, brothers, super woke, super liberal, now transplanted Oakland Negro Kevin Durant. He reminded me so much of one of these dudes on his last day at his job, a job that he hates. And he's just walking up and down the hallway telling people how he really feel about him. Like, I never liked you. Looking at his old boss, I never liked your ass either. He's not answering any calls. He's not filing any papers. He's not submitting any emails, any reports. He's just packing up all this shit and letting people know how he really feel. That's what Kevin Durant reminds me of. Right now, Kevin's starting to understand that he's about halfway through his NBA career. At best, he may be more than halfway through his career. And he's looking back, he's seeing 4 or 5 scoring titles. He's seeing a 2-time world champion, 2-time finals MVP, 1-time regular season MVP. If he retires right now, he's a first ballot Hall of Famer, no doubt about it. And he's barely 30 years old. If he's 30, he just turned 30. And he knows that most likely the best portions of his career are going to come over the next 2 to 3 years, maybe 4 years, where he'll probably win at least 2 more championships. So now he's ready to give people his ass to kiss. And he's trying to re-engineer his history by stating that when he was in OKC playing for the Thunder, he was being a phony. Do I think that he was being a phony? No, I don't. I just think that he was being a company man. And when I say company man, not just for the Thunder, not just for the NBA, but also for his corporate sponsorships. But right now, it's the hip thing to be woke. It's the hip thing to speak your mind, however much mind you have to speak. You don't even have to be intelligent or informed to run your mouth nowadays. And that's what Kevin Durant has decided to do. He, along with LeBron James and a bevy of other woke athletes, understand that they're operating from a relatively unassailable platform because they're taking advantage of the fact that they're so-called young black men and that right now the liberal sports media is feeding them and making them feel like they're never wrong, they're never in the wrong, and that they should speak and that everything that they have to say is quote-unquote woke or intelligent. And some of it is intelligent, but most of it's not. And I think that Kevin Durant is going to look back at this portion of his life just like he's looking back at how he was thinking and how he was conducting himself 8 years ago. And he's going to say to himself, you know what, I was not right there either. When he gets to be about 37, 38, he's going to look back at his life and the things that he's decided to do in the last year or so. And he's going to say, you know what, I was not in my right mind. But anyway, they're going to talk about it. I'm going to chime in.
Kevin Durant, though, he's no stranger to Twitter controversy, and yesterday was no different. One Oklahoma City Thunder fan took exception to Kevin Durant telling Fox Sports that he was a phony in OKC, and the guy you see now, that's the real me. The fan tweeted back at Durant. He said, well, the guy you are now is a clown that no one respects and takes seriously. Kevin Durant responded, of course, directly back to that fan. Here's what he said. Here's that clout you ordered. Enjoy.
It's very obvious that Kevin Durant going back and forth with fans or idolaters or admirers on Twitter. And when I say idolaters and admirers, I'm not just talking about the people who have good things to say. The people who have bad things to say but are paying attention to you, they're fans as well. It's very obvious that by him going back and forth with them, it's having some type of cathartic effect on him.
Boy, Stephen A., if it's true, that's 2 different KDs, one in Golden State, one in OKC. Which one do you like better?
Well, first of all,
I don't think that it's about who you like better. It's about who Kevin Durant likes better. That's all that matters. And it's very clear that at this point in his life, Kevin Durant likes who he is right now more than he liked who he was in OKC. I think that he felt stifled by that environment. I think that a lot of pressures and responsibilities came onto him at a very young time in his life because he happened to be a superlative basketball talent, even though he was still more of a grown boy than a young man. And I think that he's reflecting back and realizing that he's kind of disdainful that he was put in that position. I believe that he understands that if he had to go do it again, he would have to do it all again because that's what's gotten him to this point in his life. And I think that he's resentful of the fact that he had to stifle his thoughts, his views, or his perceptions to fit into a certain image that he felt the OKC Thunder front office and the NBA wanted him to be. I think he's very resentful about that.
Well, I would tell you the original one because I don't find, first, I want to be very, very clear about what I'm about to say. Kevin Durant is lying.
How do you know he's lying, sir?
Kevin Durant has never been a phony. Kevin Durant has never been that guy. And for people,
I'll take his word over yours. If Kevin Durant is stating that he was a phony when he was with the OKC Thunder. I have to take his word for it because he knows himself better than you know him, that's for sure. I promise you that, Stephen A. Smith. Maybe you believe that you're advocating for him by stating that when he says he was being a phony, he's not being real or honest about it because you viewed him as a nice guy with OKC. And you don't think that he was being a phony nice guy. I don't think that's what he's talking about. I think that what Kevin Durant is stating is that he felt pressure. He put pressure on himself, and there was exterior pressure placed upon him to be a certain type of someone. And he didn't want to be that someone. For those of you brothers who remember, Kevin Durant was known for walking around with a Bible in his backpack and trying to act as if he was some quote-unquote saved Christian super basketball player. And then, of course, he got engaged to one of the WNBA players, and then she got very disappointed when she was unable to secure the bag, per se, and try to make herself and Kevin Durant the basketball version of Jay-Z and Beyonce. I guarantee you that was the image that she had for their relationship in her mind, and he, quote-unquote, broke her heart. But it was probably the best decision that he's ever made, because it's very clear that just looking at his maturity at 30 years old or 29 or however old he is, that there was no way in the world that he was ready to be married at 23, and I believe that she knew that. She saw a little boy when she saw him. She saw a little boy who had a big spotlight on him, and she was going to be able to get him to impregnate her, and she would have a latch in his spine for the rest of his life. And he was very fortunate to break that spell. Whoever gave him advice to leave her behind and leave that engagement behind gave him very good advice. Because if she was truly with him, she would have stayed with him through that journey. Or maybe he never really liked her to begin with. Maybe he was with her and that was part of his fake persona. Who knows?
For people who think that he is that way, they're wrong. Kevin Durant and I obviously have had our issues in the past because, you know what, I called his move the softest or the weakest move by a superstar that I've ever seen.
Yeah, somewhere around that move that you made when you went from Fox to ESPN, the #1 sports network on the planet Earth. Very similar soft move.
Stand by that statement.
But apologize to his mother for it.
Of course, Mama Durant. She's nothing but love for Mama Durant.
Of course. Like the average so-called black male in this society, you have to make sure that you show obeisance to the mother goddess.
Durant now, obviously so. But I say all of that to say because I want to emphasize and specify my point. I had a problem with his move. I have never had a problem with the person that Kevin Durant is. Kevin Durant is a guy that is at his core, he's one of the most decent guys you'll ever find.
How do you know that, sir? Do you know him at his core? I think that Kevin Durant is a brother who's in the midst of a transformation, and he's living that out publicly for mass consumption. And I have to give him a certain amount of credit for his willingness to be transparent, especially with him understanding that he is a public figure, so he might as well not try to hide it. I think that he's still relatively confused, but it's up to him to work through his own confusion as part of growing into a man. But for Stephen A. Smith to act as if he knows him better than he knows himself, I'm sorry, sir, I'm not buying it.
He cares about people. He cares about doing things the right way. He is not a bad person by any stretch of the imagination.
I don't think that he stated that he was being a fake good person in OKC. I think that he was stating that he was being a phony. As a matter of fact, I know that's what he was stating. And that term phony can be applied in a myriad of ways. I myself believe that he looked at himself as a pawn and as a puppet while he was with OKC. And he tolerated a lot of things that he should not have tolerated. That's why I always tell you, brothers, you get what you deserve, you get what you tolerate. But that was all a part of his life. If the worst thing that he had to tolerate was being a superstar basketball player in OKC and not being quite sure how to navigate life from the age of about 22 to 27 or 19 to 27, it's okay, that's life. You're still alive. You're not a baby daddy. You don't have a woman controlling you. You're not a part of the prison industrial complex. You made your way through it, and you're a stronger and better person because of it. Now you just have to get off of Twitter.
Can he be sensitive? Sure. Did he want to put forth a good public image? Absolutely. That doesn't mean he's phony. What has happened now compared to before is that before he was afraid to step up and really speak his mind because of the backlash that he would receive. And now that he's been in the league for a decade, he doesn't care anymore. It's not that he was a phony. It's that he grew up and he established himself as one of the great players this game has ever seen. And as a result, this is just his mentality. So when you talk about whether you like him before, you like him now, what I liked about him before is that before he didn't put himself in a position to deal with scrutiny he can't stomach. Now he puts himself in a position where he finds himself coming across as a bit too sensitive because he doesn't necessarily have that alligator skin that some of us, mainly yours truly, has.
It's so interesting that you try to attribute alligator skin to yourself, Stephen A. Smith, but you're known for exploding and imploding on the national airwaves whenever an athlete criticizes you. I need to know what your definition of sensitivity is. I also need to know what your definition of alligator skin is. I don't have a problem with a person like Kevin Durant responding to a critic if he feels like that criticism is unfair. If he's going to be a part of Twitter, then he's going to engage in Twitter beefs and Twitter conversations. The main issue that I had with the brothers when he decided to create a bunch of fake accounts. Now you're more worried about perception than reality. I think that he's finally started to accept his own reality. I don't think that he's starting issues or that he's trying to engage in conversations that he can't handle mentally or emotionally. I think that he's accepted the fact that he's someone who likes to go back and forth with people. Once again, I believe that it is clearly a catharsis for him. There's little doubt in my mind about that. But just getting back to Stephen A. Smith, he loves to call himself Mr. Alligator Skin or somebody who is extremely tough or deals with criticism well. I think the complete opposite. And I don't think that there's anything necessarily wrong with that. If he's somebody who feels like he has to fire back shots to make himself feel content or at peace, then go ahead and do so.
I genuinely and truly can give 2 cents about what most people say, think, or feel. That's not...
Well, Stephen A. Smith, is that why in the aftermath of Kevin Durant stating that he denied your assertion that you had some inside information on him, is that why you came on the national airwaves and looked dead in the camera and told Kevin Durant that he does not want to make an enemy out of you, and you tried to make your voice all deep and guttural? Is that why, sir?
Not how Kevin Durant's built. Before, he guarded against it by not putting himself in those positions. Now he finds himself responding to certain situations he shouldn't respond to. It comes across as a bit soft, and he should avoid putting himself in those positions like he did back in the day when he was in OKC.
Well, Stephen A. Smith, I remember when Skip Bayless was on First Take and he would constantly chastise you about going back and forth with people over the internet. And you would claim, of course, as you do right now, that it wasn't a big deal to you and that you just like to curse people out. Those were your words almost verbatim. So I don't see much difference between that and what you're accusing Kevin Durant of.
That's my issue.
You and I really disagree on this one.
Sure.
I like the honest one, Will. The one I prefer is the honest one. Now,
But I never thought
I'm going to
you were
go
dishonest.
I'm going to go right at your alligator skin right now.
Sure.
You say lie. You accuse a lot of people, including me. You're lying to the American public. I know
Yes,
you're
sir.
saying it tongue-in-cheek.
I do think
But the
you're lying
point
to the
is,
American
the
people.
point is, a lie is not simply a false statement. It's
Okay.
an intentionally dishonest one. I don't think Kevin Durant is lying, whether he's right or wrong, whether he's evolved as a person, which clearly he has, even to be comfortable enough to say this in public.
I'm
now.
saying he was lying when he called
is
himself
evolved.
a phony.
But
That's
he
what I'm
may
saying.
look back at himself then and say, you know, that really wasn't me.
Absolutely. Or maybe he was looking at himself at that time and saying, I really don't want to say this, but I have to, because I don't want to let everybody down. And if I'm the real me, they may reject me.
And he's evolved enough as a person right now to say, I feel confident. I want to say this is really who I am. I prefer the honest one. And let me tell you something.
Damn, you know that was a big day for Kevin Durant when he got signed by the Golden State Warriors and they had this little press conference because it looked like the brother actually got a real haircut and brushed his hair. Damn.
People don't. Many people would rather be lied to by athletes because they
That's
can
true.
serve them the kind of mythology, right, that many of us grew up, especially if you're older, believing about athletes. You know, once upon a time, Mickey Mantle was like a god. He couldn't do anything wrong. It turns out he could do plenty wrong. And later in life, he said, I wish I would have been better, right? So Kevin Durant is...
Mickey Mantle used to be all up out in these streets. Good Lord. That man... that man was bopping everything.
Durant is saying, no, I'm not just the small town kid. Oh, shucks, here's my humility. A lot of that was false humility, maybe. I didn't feel comfortable enough in my own skin. Maybe he didn't feel accomplished enough. Maybe he was just too young. He got to the league very young.
Ding, 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 and ding. Max Kellerman, you're on point with this one, sir.
I now feel like an accomplished, full adult, and now I feel like I can show you who I am. And what I like so much about...
And on top of all that, Max Kellerman, he understands that he's built up so much equity over the past 10 years that you can't say shit to him. You can't say shit to him right now. if he decides to run his mouth. What can you say? As I've already stated, the man is a 4- or 5-time scoring champion. He's a 1-time regular season MVP. He's a 2-time finals MVP. He's had serious defensive player of the year consideration. The brother is pretty much at the pinnacle of his career right now.
That is precisely because people, maybe you, maybe others, say, you know, I don't like this guy as much as I like the image you were projecting once upon a time. Good for KD. Okay. Yeah, but I can't speak for you, Stephen A., but I'll speak for myself, and I think what many people out there perceive, Max, this isn't the real and authentic Kevin Durant.
No, so you cannot possibly perceive that someone is not being authentic when they're telling you that they are. All you can perceive is that the image that was presented to you before by a person, you preferred over the one that they're presenting right now. That's the only thing that you can assert.
This isn't the confident, I'm ready to step out and show you who I am, Kevin Durant. This is a guy who appears to be, well, at the very best, conflicted about who he is. He seems to internalize, listen to with rabbit ears, every bit of sensitivity.
I think that he's in the midst of a period of transition in his life. Right now, he's in a cocoon. He's not a caterpillar. He's not quite the butterfly yet, but he's on the way to emerging from the cocoon. So you have to be respectful to him when he states that at one time he was being phony. He's looking back 8-9 years ago and he sees a person who was not quite sure about life and who was moving according to the dictates of others and what he thought was going to gain the approval of others.
He internalizes every bit of frustration. This is a guy who, to me, Max, quite honestly, isn't yet being authentic to who he is, but trying to figure it out. He doesn't know. I don't know. I don't know if the old Kevin Durant was phony. Hold on. I don't know that this Kevin Durant. I don't think this Kevin Durant.
Let me chime in because I want you to respond to both of us. Let me chime in here. Where you and I differ is that I think that Kevin Durant has a heightened level of sensitivity because deep in his at the core of his soul, he knows the move was weak. Period. The fact of the matter is that
I don't think that he knows the move was weak. I think that he knows that the move was going to be highly criticized. And I think that perception can become reality. But when we view history through a context of objectivity, then we understand that at one time the LA Lakers had Jerry West and Elgin Baylor, and they were constantly getting to the finals. They couldn't get over the hump, so they got Wilt Chamberlain. The Philadelphia 76ers in the early 80s, they were constantly getting to the finals. They could not get over the hump. They got Moses Malone. These are things that teams have always done. In 1990, Charles Barkley tried to lobby to get traded to the LA Lakers because the Lakers had just lost Kareem the year before, and Barkley thought that maybe he can get his way out of Philly and get to the Lakers. Of course, 2 years later, he would demand a trade to Phoenix, and that trade was worked out by David Falk and Nike, who were able to persuade the Philadelphia 76ers to trade Charles Barkley to Phoenix. So there's really nothing new about any of this. There's always been a concept in the history of the NBA of acquiring a top-level player that could take a team over the hump. And at the end of the day, the Golden State Warriors, even though they won 73 games in the regular season, they look like a team that was built for the regular season and not the playoffs in the 2016 playoffs. Even with a fully healthy Steph Curry, when you look at the difficulty that they had in many of their playoff series, they seem to be a team that needed that little extra oomph. And I think that even Draymond understood this, which is why he fought so hard to have KD come onto their squad.
This is that Kevin Durant, as I've said to you before, is one of the greatest scorers we've ever seen in this game. This guy is a career 27-point-per-game scorer on 49% shooting. This dude can drop 40 in his sleep. He is one of the greatest scorers this game has ever seen, and as far as I'm concerned, is a close number 2 to LeBron, not a distant mile, like you have said, Max. But because of that greatness, with greatness comes great responsibility, as they say.
It's Uncle Ben.
That's right, Uncle Ben, Spider-Man. And to go from where you were in a Game 7 of a conference final to the team that beat you, who happened to be 73-9, who had made 2 consecutive trips to the NBA Finals, he knows. Even though he might have done the right thing for himself, he knows in his core he can't blame others for looking at him and saying, damn. I mean, for you to be that great, to join that team, and I think that's what eats away at him, and I think that's what you see.
I'm going to address them both.
Sure.
I'll use the rabbit ears as a peg here.
Okay.
Well, because I think that he does have rabbit ears, and I think he's trying to deal with that. And if that's
right, but once again, most great athletes have rabbit ears. He just happens to be living in the age of social media. Michael Jordan is on record as stating that he's very thankful that he's not playing in professional sports in the age of social media. Me, myself, I'm very thankful that I did not have to attend school, elementary school, junior high school, or high school in the age of social media. I could imagine what many of these kids have to go through with so much talk going around via social media, even above and beyond the natural chatter that takes place in a high school environment and all that confusion that it can cause. That's why I've stated in other videos pertaining to Kevin Durant, I could by no means visualize myself being him, a 7-foot-tall superstar in a professional sports league where he's globally renowned, globally known, and globally scrutinized. So I give him a certain amount of credit, an extra amount of credit, for being someone who's never been caught up in any type of criminality. And yes, the burner account thing was dumb as hell, but I mean, it is what it is. You live and you learn.
That's really who he is. Listen, I'm a guy who's sensitive to what other people think. That may be him. That may be his identity, right?
Too, yes.
And even if he's denying it, to me, there's still an evolution taking place before our eyes, which is now taking place in a more honest way than it used to. He's saying it out loud. He's saying, this is how I used to be, this is how I am now. And even if what he's saying about himself now is a little more wishful thinking than reality, even the fact that he's willing to talk about it this way shows me a change in him.
But that's why I'm right and you're wrong. The reason why I'm right and you're wrong is because we're addressing the word phony. And that is when I said he lied. You're talking about a process of evolution and growth and maturation that is taking place before our very eyes. That's not phony. That's right.
That's only not phony if you believe that Kevin Durant was always on the up and up during his time period with OKC. And that's my statement, Stephen A. Smith. That's my point. My point is that I have to believe Kevin Durant over you when he states that he was being phony in OKC. Maybe he was not as willing to conform to the dictates of the powers that be in OKC as he tried to portray he was on national television. Maybe he was not the happy-go-lucky person that he portrayed on television while he was in OKC. I have to take Kevin Durant's word on this.
Growth. It's exactly what you said. So the point is for him to say he was a phony, for him to say that, you know what, I wasn't real back in the day, but I am now. No, you were real then. That's who you really were. And you've evolved and grew and matured to this point where you're different now. And that's okay.
He's different now in his ability to say something like this. But what I take him saying that to mean is, when I was in OKC, I had thoughts that I did not express publicly.
Ding.
That I wanted to. And maybe he still does, but it seems to me
a fake Twitter account.
Right. But he doesn't anymore. Which was phony, but he doesn't anymore, ostensibly. The point
he got caught.
Are you sure? The point is, we're not. The point is, he is. Look, let me ask you guys just an honest question. Sure. Do you see KD as a guy who speaks more honestly now than he used to? More openly?
Oh, openly, yes.
Who's less afraid to show you who he is than he used to be?
Here's what I'm genuinely saying. I have never looked at Kevin Durant or spoken to Kevin Durant on the few occasions that I've spoken to him, and I have never encountered an individual that I believe is dishonest or misrepresents who he is. I think he's more open and outspoken now.
He's more comfortable in his own skin now to me than he used to.
I will sit up here, Kevin Durant and I can butt heads, and I will never sit here and call that man dishonest and phony. I don't find him to be that way.
Well, you know that it would be very difficult for you to do so, Stephen A. Smith, because you would have to have truly quantifiable evidence to prove that he was being phony. In a court of law, once someone confesses, there's no longer need to pursue proof. So Kevin Durant has already provided the confession. There's no need for us to go forward with this, sir.
I truly don't.
And I hope this isn't the end of his evolution. The truth of the matter is I had similar level of criticism that you did for the move, but he didn't commit capital murder.
That's right.
He's got to get over it. We got to get over it. Except on the Cleveland Cavaliers.
I've gotten over it. I've gotten over it.
And I have too. And he should get over it. That's the point. He's got to evolve into not being so frustrated.
The reason why Kevin Durant is unable to move forward or quote-unquote get over this move or what he perceives to be the hyper scrutiny of this move is because he knows that this will be used to take credit away from him. That's what's bothering Kevin Durant. Remember, he's someone who obsesses over being number two. He knows that for all intents and purposes, he will be considered the number one player in the NBA had he won 2 consecutive championships on any other team except for the Golden State Warriors. So that's truly what's killing him right now.
He's got involved in not hearing all this.
But Will, don't stop there. Tell us why. Because here's the reality. Here's why I'm over it. Kevin Durant showed up against the greatest player in the world, back-to-back years, and got in his face and went at him. If you had rode the coattails of a Steph Curry, a Klay Thompson, and those boys, that would be different. No, he said, give me the damn ball. For first go round last year, he averaged 35 minutes. This year, he gave 3.
You grew up in Hollis, right?
Sure.
You grew up in Hollis.
Sure.
You ever see the kid in the neighborhood who has no problem fighting the other kid as long as all of his boys are there, then he feels brave?
Yeah.
But when he's alone one-on-one, it's a little different?
Right.
Well, he took it to LeBron, but your point about him making the weakest move the superstars ever made and all that, isn't that the same dynamic he gets with a crew like that? Now he feels comfortable.
Well, you're kind of sort of making the point that C.J. McCollum tried to make, but C.J. made it in a much more clunky way.
Legitimate, but again, LeBron did not exactly the same thing, but LeBron came into his own once he was with D. Wade and under Pat Riley. So another.
Well, LeBron did not do the exact same thing, but once again, people are trying to reverse engineer the LeBron James move because he's the new favorite of the liberal sports media. At the time that LeBron James decided to go down to Miami and play with Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh, it was looked at as being just as soft a move as the Kevin Durant move. As a matter of fact, I think that on paper, that Miami team had more talent than the Golden State Warriors had when Kevin Durant went to go play with them.
In other words, I can't compete
the only one
in condemnation. Come on now.
He deserves to get over his frustration.
Yes.
He deserves to start ignoring the trolls. He deserves to be confident.
I don't think that he feels like he wants to start to ignore the trolls. I think that he likes the trolls. I think that he's someone who's caught up in the social media world, and he's never going to move past that until he's ready to move forward with his life. And I'm not quite sure when that's going to be, but that's up to him. It is what it is. So peace.